This video is about Midjourney tutorial for beginners. Moreover, you can also grab my Midjourney prompts pack, which contains over 30 different categories and around 1,000 prompts organized in a Notion page. So let's dive in, creating your first Midjourney text prompt. First, let's get familiar with creating our first text prompt inside of Midjourney. In this particular instance, I'm using Discord as a Windows app, but you can use this through your web browser or even on your phone. And the second step to that puzzle is actually going to midjourney.com and signing up. It will then bring you back to Discord, where we now have access to the Midjourney server identified by the sailboat, and we're going to start to create a prompt in one of these newbie channels. One thing to mention as we start to create artwork in one of these channels is that several other people are doing it at the same time. Everything that we enter is going to be at the bottom of the screen here, and we're going to first of all type in a /. The prompt that we're looking to write is imagine prompt. So if I click on this, because it's frequently used, it's going to write it for me, and I'm going to follow that with a colon. What we choose to create is all up to us, but I would like to see a purple sunset over the Pacific Ocean. I'll press the return key and Midjourney gets to work. Again, several other people are prompting here, so we might lose track of our art. We could try to scroll up to find it, but there happens to be a better way. At the top of Midjourney on the top right-hand corner is an inbox, and if you click on that inbox and then click on mentions, we should see the prompt that we just entered. And by simply clicking on the button jump, it's going to jump to that point in the newbies channel. Now in terms of what we're seeing here, we have 4 1x1 variations of the text prompt that I just entered, and it's up to us to figure out which one we like. And taking a look at this, I kind of like the one on the lower left, and this is identified by the number 3. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the buttons down here correspond to whether you want to enlarge one of those images or create more variations of it. So I like 3, but I'd like to see a few different variations, so I'm going to click on the V3 button. And once I do, Midjourney is going to get to work again. If I want to keep track of the generation again, I'm going to go to my inbox, and I can see the variations that it's doing specifically of this third image on the lower left, and I'm going to jump to it. Jump to it in the thread. That job seems to be done. So now that I have these 4 generations, if you like one of these images, let's say I like the one on the top right, I'm now going to enlarge it by clicking on the U2 button. And heading back to our inbox, we can jump there and track the progress of its creation. Now, one additional thing, while you can see all of your images being produced inside the newbies channel, under the Midjourney server in Discord, we could also keep track of all of our artwork at midjourney.com. So that same place where we want to go sign up, we can head back there and see the artwork that we've produced so far. So here is that completed image now upscaled, and if you right-click the image, we can save that image to our system right now and use it. There you have it. We have now created our first prompts with Midjourney. Let's continue to see what else we can do with this incredible generative image app, viewing your images on Midjourney and finding inspiration. Now there's a few other things that you should know to find out information about your images that could be helpful. One is that we can actually find out information about this specific job, as well as seed number, directly in the Midjourney server. The way that we do this is to click on the Add Reaction button, right next to the actual prompt that you're interested into, and what you should find is an envelope. So if you don't find that envelope for any reason, you can type in the word envelope up here. And by simply clicking on that envelope, what it's going to do is ask it for information about this specific job. You can see that it shows up here at the side in the Midjourney bot. If I click on that, here's that information about the job that I send out, the job ID, as well as the seed number. And what's cool is the seed number could be used in other generations of images to keep a similar style. In addition to finding information about the prompts that you send out, don't forget everything is also stored at midjourney.com. Let's see this. So I'm back here at midjourney.com. We are going to sign in. So here I am at the home, and under new is the newest image I created. But keep in mind that we could also click on all instead of upscales, which is the only thing that's showing. Here we can see the upscaled image, the different sunsets over the Pacific prompts that I typed into that newbie channel. Now the cool thing is, when you are in midjourney.com under your account, I'm going to click on the 3-dot icon. We can do a few things here. We can copy the actual prompts or the full command and reuse that again in an additional prompt. So we can also open this job inside of Discord. It's giving me access to Discord through the webpage. And if I head back to the Midjourney profile, there is another element of this, and this is called Community Showcase. It's where we could find tons of inspiration of what other users have publicly decided to share to their audience. So you can see all of the various types of artwork here that's available. We can actually copy the person's full command prompt and use it in our own artwork creation. So midjourney.com, both home, which is going to keep track of the images you create, as well as the community showcase you can use as a great spot for inspiration. Not to mention, as we saw earlier, if I head back to Discord, just simply seeing and learning in the newbie channels how other people type in prompts can allow us to learn how to work with this better. using external images with a text prompt. We're going to look at how we can upload an image to Discord followed by some text in order for Midjourney to create a new image from those sources. Now, another cool thing is that I have my dedicated direct messaging with the Midjourney bot, so we don't have to actually follow the entire channel threads of producing imagery. I also have the ability to use private mode and not share my imagery with the public. So when it comes to Midjourney, so far we've seen how we can use the Imagine prompt to enter in some text, but Imagine also works with imagery followed by text. So the first thing that we need to do is give it an image to reference. One way to be able to do that is to go to a web link where it could see an image. Alternatively, we can also upload it to Discord. First thing first, let's upload something to Discord by clicking on the plus icon in your message thread. You can see the image here, but just press the return key. It's going to upload it. In order to reference this image in an Imagine prompt, we need to right-click it, and then from that, let's copy the link. The way that this text prompt has to be structured is first of all, hit that / key, followed by Imagine prompt. I'll then hit the colon, and we're going to now use that link I just copied. So on my computer, I'm going to press Ctrl V. Right after that is now where we enter the text prompt. In this case, I'm going to type in with dinosaurs running, and I'm going to follow by pressing the return key. And now we can see the final images. Now there's a couple things to mention here. One is that this image by default gets a weight next to the portion of the text prompt that you give it. So for instance, by default, Midjourney says, I'm going to reference this image to a certain degree and then also take the text prompt into consideration to a certain degree. In some instances, you may want Midjourney to use more of the image and have less of a weight when it comes to your text prompt. And this is something that we can help guide Midjourney with if we are unhappy with how our images look. The other thing that we can do is also guide Midjourney to create artwork based on the aspect ratio of our image. So if you can see here, in this case, it's very close to 16:9. So what we are going to do is rerun this. So I'm going to copy here with the prompt, the image link, followed by the text prompt. And right after the words running with dinosaurs, so I'm going to press the comma key. And next we want to use these two small dashes. Let's type in R, this actually stands for aspect ratio. And then we're going to type in 16:9. We're telling Midjourney in this instance to create a 16:9 aspect ratio of these images. Now I'm just going to press the space key and we're going to add one more, which happens to do image weight. The image has a number associated with how much it will reference it. For Midjourney version 5, which I'm using, the lowest end is 0.5 and the highest end is 2. Depending on what version of Midjourney you are using, which you can control in your settings, is going to be depending how much of a number you might want to give to your photo. In this case, I wanted to give it almost the highest image weight possible. So I'm going to type in EO, and that value is 2. These are known as commands that we've placed after our image and text. So let me press the return key. Okay, now it's finished generating the images. And let's notice a couple things. One is we now have the 16:9 aspect ratio for each of our photos, which is pretty cool, but based on the highest image weight available in version 5, we can also see it's giving a lot more consideration to the image versus the text part of the prompt. So I'm going to press the respective button in order to upscale that image. And in version 5, one really amazing thing is that the upscaling already happened with the creation of these images. So it's ready for you right away. And if you want to now have this on your system, just right-click that and save the image. One thing that you could practice right now inside of Discord is being able to upload a different image with different text prompts and try different image weight values. So last but not least, I'm back here at midjourney.com and I can see the last job that I generated. And if you didn't know, similar here, I can just click on all to see all of my jobs. Now when we go over to Explore or the community feed, if I find an image that I like by scrolling and would like to create something similar, I'll simply click on the 3 dots icon next to the photo. And you can notice that we have several options that were available under just our photos. So here I could copy someone who shared publicly imagery, the full command, or the prompt of a photo, and use that as a starting point to come up with my own imagery. So there you have it. This is how you can create an image using your own reference images, along with a text prompt inside of Midjourney. Blending images. Now we are going to continue the exploration of giving images to Midjourney as a reference and having it create artwork, but this time with blending images. I'm here in my direct message section of Discord where I have a lovely conversation with the Midjourney bot, and in this case, I'm going to type in the / and unlike we used the Imagine several times, this time I'm going to choose Blend. The cool part about this is it makes it really easy for us to now choose 2 files to upload to Discord. So first of all, I want to select the Northern Lights image. So I'll open that and we can see here it's referencing that, and I'll click on the image 2 where I'm going to choose this image from the web. Again, you can use any 2 images to blend together. In fact, we could even add additional images, a 3rd, 4th, and a 5th. In this case, we uploaded 2 images to Discord which it's referencing, and we're using version 5 in order to create the 4 variations. Now, I didn't enter anything in terms of aspect ratio like we did with the last images, so just keep in mind we're going to get 1:1 size by default, but we can try to blend this again by just simply copying the URL that were produced originally. And there we have Midjourney's creation of these images or this blend. Now, one thing that we haven't discussed is if you might not be happy with the results that Midjourney gives you. Like I am here, as previously we tried to adjust image weight to get a different variation, but you should know that you could always ask Midjourney to try something else by clicking on this circular icon. This is now going to reroll the blend that's going to come up with different variations for you to choose from. So here, we can see the newly generated images. So somewhat similar to the previous images. So this is where we can add some commands here at the end of the prompt to help direct the creation of the blend a bit more. So what I can do instead is add that blend mode again. Try another 2 images by clicking on one as a reference and clicking on another. I'll click on the northern lights again and see in this instance how Midjourney combines the 2. That is how you can reference 2 images for blending them together inside of Midjourney, getting help and adjusting settings. Now we are going to get familiar with how we can ask Midjourney for help, as I've been using a direct messaging system with the Midjourney bot. This also allows us to see the images that are being produced without the hassle of a channel. All we have to do, like we've done with Imagine, is type in the /help, followed by the return key, and that's going to produce a bunch of different resources of where we can go for that help. One of my favorite areas is the Quick Start Guide. If we click on this, it's going to lead us to a web page of Midjourney documentation. You will discover a recap of things that we've already done in this training, such as the Imagine command, its power, not to mention the options that we have after it's created its job, including upscaling that image and creating variations. One of my favorite areas of this quick start guide happens to be the next steps. Let's first of all go to prompts, and I'm going to scroll a little bit down, where you're going to find out a really interesting memo under prompting notes in the grammar section, which is how you should prompt Midjourney based on the model that you are using. So version 4 and version 5 are much better at natural language than earlier versions. I would say version 5 takes the cake. With earlier versions, you might want to slightly change your sentence structure to get a better end result. And the other thing to note is exploring prompting, which are different styles in Midjourney, by simply asking it. For instance, if I type in the Imagine prompt followed by folk art as the style and the style of a cat, it might produce something similar to this. Take a note at some of these styles listed here. We'll try one of these out here in a second. And how we could even get specific about different types of line styles, try different generations, and creating emotion. Definitely something to look at in terms of exploring prompting. Let's head back to Discord and now take a look at our settings. I'll type in that / followed by typing settings. We'll hit return, and this is what I'm currently using. At the time of this recording, the base Midjourney version is 5. Style is something important to keep in mind, which is essentially how tightly Midjourney is going to follow your text prompt. A low style is going to follow your text prompt literally versus a very high style might even ignore most of your text prompt in certain situations. This in combination with fast mode, which generates the images more quickly at the expense of more time spent on the server and potentially a higher subscription price. I'm just going to change 2 more of these settings. I want to set the style to very high while still keeping this at Midjourney version 5. Now let's see this in action. I'm going to type in Imagine. I'm going to type in a black light painting of sad elephants from the early 1900s. I'm not going to add anything to the end of this prompt, but I'm just going to press the return key. So let's see how much it follows my text prompt. Okay, so this is what it's created. So if you recall the black light image that was shown to us, this looks slightly different. Didn't follow it as closely. I'm not sure if these elephants are sad either. I'm going to go back to my settings and make some changes. I'm going to set the style to low. I'll continue using Midjourney version 5, and again, we're going to get to remix mode in a second. But let's copy this part of the prompt, and I'll come down here to the message and add that / imagine, then paste the prompt. Let's see what Midjourney comes up with. You can see here with the images that it generated, this is mimicking a black light painting style much more than the higher style that was given in the previous prompt. In these images right now, I like the 3rd version down here, so I'm going to create a new variation of that. And because I've enabled remix, I can actually add something to this before it creates its new variations. For instance, rather than sad elephants, I'm going to choose sad cats and actually say from the 1800s instead. We'll keep the aspect ratio and the style the same. So let's press submit. And now Remix has rewritten that prompt for us while keeping the majority of it, and is going to produce an image based on that remix. So you might be able to see that Remix could probably be a huge time saver, rather than you having to copy and paste or rewrite a prompt altogether. We can simply enable Remix in our settings, then vary the image that we like, but with slight changes to the actual text prompt. So there's how we can ask for help and change our settings here inside of Midjourney. Generating photorealistic images. Now let's just see if we can get a more photorealistic image inside of Midjourney. But in order to get a photorealistic image, you need to think like a photographer. A photographer wouldn't type in the word photorealistic. They might mention the name of their lens, the type of lighting, the time of day that it was shot, to keep into consideration how the person producing the artwork would talk. So let's keep this in mind. And I'm going to type in that / and then imagine prompt, followed by some text like a black and white photo of a woman shot with a 50mm lens in 1950s Paris, wearing a yellow scarf on a sunny day. I'll follow this with a comma and actually insert an aspect ratio like we've done before. I'll make this photo like 4:5 in this instance, and I'll follow this with the return key. Midjourney is now waiting to start, and we'll see in a second the 4 variations that it's come up with. Now, based on the results, we can see a couple things. In one case, we have a nice 1950s black and white photo with the Eiffel Tower in the background. We get one interpretation with a splash of yellow color, although it's a black and white photo, which is pretty cool. And you can see, but based on the lens that I picked. Not to mention the prompt settings, it created a photo in that style. In many cases, you want to think in the medium of the art that you are trying to produce. Text separation and weights to drive image creation. Now we are going to look at how we can add parameters to our text prompt in order to help guide Midjourney to get the type of artwork that we are looking for. We are going to look at this in 2 ways. One way is to essentially separate words when necessary. The other way is to give specific words a higher weight than others. First of all, let me write a prompt here. A field filled with hot dogs. I'll follow that with a comma. And let's play around with the aspect ratio. And I'll press the return key, and let's wait to see what it creates. So here is the end result. We can see clearly that this is a field filled with different styles of hot dogs. But let's say that what we were actually looking for is instead of the hot dog we eat, just dogs that are hot. What I'm going to do is take this prompt, I'm going to copy and paste it. I will make one slight change, and that is between the words hot and dogs. I'm going to enter a colon twice. This tells Midjourney to separate these 2 words, and in this instance, it's going to interpret the text prompt much differently. As you can see, this is a different interpretation. Now, in addition to this, we can actually give a stronger weight to specific words so that it has more of an influence on the end result. So let's enter the following prompts. I'm going to use that imagine prompt like we've done before. I'm going to enter a neon dream filled with creativity. I'm going to enter a colon and give this a number, which is going to be a higher weight or influence over other words in the text prompt. I'm going to give this the number 2, and I'm going to follow this in magic, which I'm going to give also a high weight of the value of 5, and that's the maximum. Let's follow this with an aspect ratio. We'll make this an 8:10 image. Now, one other cool thing is that we could start multiple prompts being generated at once. In fact, I'm going to just actually select all the text from the prompt that I just entered and enter some different weight values for words within this prompt. This time I'm going to give a higher weight to creativity, a lower numbered weight to magic. So creativity is 5, magic is 1, and I'm going to add a high weight also to neon. Okay, so here's the result of the first prompt where creativity and magic had a higher word weight than everything else inside the prompts. So we can see here its interpretation. I can see here some more magical elements in a few of these images. And let's look at that second prompt where neon has a very high weight and creativity and magic having a lower weight. So I see much more neon colors in some of the images that were produced here, not to mention some symbols in here that might display creativity over magic. So just keep that in mind of how we can use separation of words, not to mention word weights, to help drive the influence of the art that is created from our text prompt. Understanding additional imagined parameters. Now let's start to explore some additional parameters that we can add to the end of the text prompt to drive the direction of our generated art. So I'll start with the imagined prompt and type, jungle filled with dangerous animals at night. I'll follow this with a comma and a parameter that we're familiar with, which is aspect ratio 17:9, and now a new parameter --no. In this case, I want this to exclude certain animals from the image, and that includes lions, tigers, spiders, and snakes. I'm going to follow that with a return key. Okay, so we've got our images generated, and it looks like there is indeed no lions or tigers or spiders and elephants as our biggest foe in most of these photos. Okay, let's take a look at another parameter example. I'm going to type in the following. A 1930s photo of an air balloon floating over New York City. Follow that with a comma. Let's choose the aspect ratio of 16:9 and followed by our new parameter, which is --C for chaos, and enter a very high value for this, which is 90. Now chaos, once I press the return key, is actually going to create stronger variations between the 4 images that are generated. Okay, so you can see that the generation of these 4 images are quite different based on this chaos value. Okay, let's take a look at the last parameter. I'm going to type in an establishing shot of the city of Toronto in the style of gaudy, followed by an aspect ratio of 17:9. And the extra parameters not coming into play yet. I'm going to send this off to Midjourney. Now here are the 4 images that it came up with. I kind of like the interpretive style here, but I'd like to see some other variations. And now here we have these variations much closer in style to each other. And what I'd like to do right now is actually bring up a reaction, an envelope to find out information about this varied job that we created. You can see here this is the seed number that was used to create these similar variations. To see the seed value in another light, I'm just going to copy the prompt that we just made. The seed number could come in handy. For instance, let me copy it and choose my imagined prompt. And I'm going to type in an establishing shot of Paris in the style of gaudy, like we did earlier, then define the aspect ratio, and then add a new parameter as seed, followed by that seed number. And let's see what we end up with. And here's Paris in the style of gaudy. So hopefully these parameters will help you guide your generative art creations. Now let's explore some more parameters. Let's start off with a new prompt. So I'm just going to type wallpaper filled with iconic sports cars, followed by a comma, and we want to type in this time dash dash tile, which is going to create a seamless image. This can be used in a variety of workflows, including graphic design as well as motion graphics. Okay, so here are our seamless images. So I'm just going to enlarge one from here. And now, just to double check that this is in fact seamless, I'm going to right-click it and choose to save that image to my system. Let's head quickly to a new web page where we can actually check this seamless texture, which you can find here at this link. Now I'll select that PNG file that was created and put it in the background. And I can see here that I can adjust the tile width in order to make sure that everything is looking great. And I see that we have now a seamless texture created from Midjourney. Heading back to Discord, let's try out another parameter using that imagined prompt. And this time, I'll type in a ghost peering into frosted glass. I'll follow this with a comma. And this time, I'll put dash dash stop 8:5 followed by the aspect ratio, which we'll put as 8:10. Stop is actually going to stop the generation of this image at the 85% mark. Okay, so here are the images it produced using the stop value. You can see in some instances that they're a bit more blurry because they weren't generated to the full 100% value. I should note that there is some stuff that we haven't covered when it comes to parameters that you could add at the end. But rest assured, if you type in help, under extra options is some Midjourney documentation about parameters and how you can use them to your advantage. Hope to see you in my next video. Till then, have fun creating your awesome artwork in Midjourney.